We're live. Ryan Kostecka, 128, 126. Timberwolves loss in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Series isn't over, Ryan, but it feels like, for all intents and purposes, this was the game they had to have in order to be anywhere near competitive the rest of the way. It's right there. I mean, everything you wanted from role players was there for him tonight. DiVincenzo shows up huge. Shows up huge. Ant and Julius Randle outscored by SGA and Jalen Williams 74-21. 74-21. And yet it's a 2-point game. I think they got to be kicking themselves right now, A, because their superstars couldn't get going, and B, because they just couldn't get a stop when they needed it tonight.
Look, it's our job to remain impartial and tell like it is, right?
Yeah.
So, is it weird to both be, you see tonight's game, it was both inspiring and pathetic. That's just the way to describe this, what
Yeah.
happened, what we all just witnessed. I mean, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, absolutely inspiring effort, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Nas was really, really good as well. I mean, everything you could possibly want. The shooting, just the hustle, the heart, everything was there. Then an absolutely just pitiful and pathetic performance from Edwards and Randall. I mean,
Yeah.
you are two guys who are the best players on your team. You talk about how, this is your time, it's your time to rise. And to fail to show up in the biggest game of not even just the postseason, but the entire season, and honestly, probably the biggest game of their careers, and to just not show up, it's just, I mean, we know we were there. We saw him in the walkthrough, we saw him in the tunnels, we got
Yeah.
photos of him, but
Right.
that was just an awful, awful performance. Look, Ant talks about how he doesn't want to be the face of the league. Well, he played like it tonight. It was
Yeah.
just there's nothing else to say. That was honestly
No.
a pathetic effort by the two of them. I thought Finch really struggled in the first half. So it's heartbreaking for the Wolves as a general, and I understand the fan base's anger over this.
Well, because they absolutely could have won. I mean, and if you get
Yeah.
down to it, offense wasn't the problem tonight. Weirdly, like, even
Nope.
though those guys only scored 21 points, they scored 126 against a really good defense.
Mhm.
So offense doesn't end up costing them the game, but it's a tone, it's everything. When your superstar takes 2 shots in the first half, two
Yeah.
shots in the first half, and yes, he was a little bit more aggressive in the second half, got it going a little bit in the third quarter. They eventually tied the game in the third quarter, but they never found a way to take the lead. They had to work so hard just to kind of get back to square. And
Yeah.
every time they got there, Oklahoma City just like pushed them away with a little bit more separation. So this is why, I mean, honestly, like, people, they were on SGA all night. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he had
Yep.
40 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. I mean, he's the MVP, and Anthony Edwards is second team All NBA this year, and I think that's pretty fair based on what they did tonight. He was the best player on the court, and Ant is one of the 10 best players in the league. That's where he is right
Yeah.
now.
I agree, and it was good to see Ant be a little more aggressive in the second half, but in the biggest game of the year, you can't, be that timid to start the game. I don't care if OKC is getting the ball out of your hands. You're making the right play. And yes, they scored 126 as a team. The Wolves offense, looked good, but the problem is that Randall and Ant had zero rhythm when it mattered most.
Yeah.
When these guys need to show up, the problem is they had no rhythm to the game. They had no feel for it. There was no comfort in that moment and just rising to it. And it was
No.
really, really difficult to see. Randall just looked like a shell of himself. And he checked out early in the game is what it felt
Yeah.
like. Just mentally, he was frustrated and he just never seemed to get going. And at least turned it on in the second half. He was more aggressive. He got downhill a lot more, like we talked about after game 3. His ability to get downhill, and he gets downhill to attack the rim and to score. And if he has to, he kicks it out. That's what really helped ignite the offense more. But overall, just a really disappointing from those two. And I thought Chris Finch I mean, what are you doing? You got to do something to just throw something different at the Thunder. I
Yeah.
mean, hearing in postgame, he just said, well, they're making shots. Well, yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
make shots if you're doing the same thing over and over and
They
over
were
again.
they were just so
Oh,
comfortable again. I mean,
so
some of them were hard
comfortable.
shots, some of them were tough shots, but some of them were just
Yeah.
comfort shots. You absolutely, you got to try something different. And when you outscore another team's bench 64-27, you would like to think you're going to win the game. You would like to
Yes.
think that. That's like that. If they show up, if they make a few defensive stops, if they get more from their starters, they should win that game by 10 or 15, given what the bench did. That's the part they're going to be kicking themselves over. Like Ant takes 13 shots ultimately. Randall, he only plays 28 minutes. He was out a lot of that fourth quarter again. Only finishes with 5 points. That's 2 out of 3 now where he's been a no-show. Obviously, he was great in game 3, but that's got to be concerning both short-term and long-term to see him kind of revert back to the Randall that his playoff reputation was before the season started.
Yeah, you talk about points, from the bench. Also, like add on that you shoot 51% from the field and 44% from three. I mean, you got to think you're going to win. You grab 19 offensive rebounds, you're going to win that game by double digits easily, and you didn't. One of the biggest stats that jumps out at me, and 13 shots, right? Listen to this from the Thunder, their big three. Holmgren, 14. Jalen Williams, 24. Shea, 30 shots.
Yeah.
What is going on? Like, why is Ant not shooting the ball at all? I mean, there's zero excuse for that. Jaden McDaniels, 9 of 15. 9 of 15. Dante, 7-11. Great performance from those three. I mean, they were combined 13 of, I think, 23 or 22
13 of 22 from three. Yeah.
Yeah, great performance.
Made a ton of big shots. Yeah, made a ton of big
huge shots, But, and yes, I get Ant was, a lot of distributor, kind of the hockey assist for a lot of those. But still, the fact that he just does not aggressive, did not take over the game like you would expect him to. And if you're going to lose, you want to lose with your best player going down. And he just failed to show up. So I don't know where the Wolves go from here. This is a game they're going to just kick themselves. I would not be surprised if, game 5 is a blowout. Because it's how do you mentally come back from a game like this? Because they could have been 2-2, had all the momentum going back to Oklahoma City. And all of a sudden, let's see how tight Oklahoma City gets.
Right.
Well, we've talked about it. They're young, they're inexperienced. And tonight, I mean, they won I don't even think they won the clutch minutes, actually. I think the Wolves technically outscored them in the clutch.
Mm-hmm.
But it just came down to the fact that Minnesota, Chris Finch called a very vanilla defense, let them get to their spots with zero urgency, not throwing double teams at them when it mattered most, just letting Shea and Jalen, these guys go one-on-one, and, they cooked. It's simple that. They cooked.
Some odd decisions along the way, too. I thought having Terrence Shannon Jr. out there to start the fourth quarter, I thought that was interesting. It worked out okay, but I was surprised by that after having very little faith in him at any other point in the postseason. You're going to have him start the most critical quarter. Now, he was okay. I think he was like maybe a -1 in his stint. He was fine. He was good again tonight. He had 9 points in 8 minutes.
2 rebounds.
So he was good, but also to have him guarding Shea on one of those crucial late inbounds plays, I thought was weird. Like, why you've got like 4 great perimeter defenders that have been harassing him all night. And speaking of which, on a night where you can't get a defensive stop, where you can't change anything on defense, where is Jalen Clark? Like, why not that night on a night where nobody else could stop any of these guys? So it was a little bit of kind of getting stuck in your own, like, hey, this is how we got here. This is how we're going to go down. And yes, they were close. I thought Oklahoma City played a really good game. Like, it was a tremendous game. It was a great game. It was pretty much everything we would have imagined it to be, but they lost on the margins, and some of those margins were coaching.
Exactly. That's the biggest takeaway is that they lost on the margins. Randall, Edwards, and Finch really lost in this game. Everyone else played well. I thought Gobert really struggled in the first half. To see him have much more of an effect on both ends of the court, much more powerful, more physical, played with more intensity, which is exactly what you wanted to see. I thought he was really good in the second half. But overall, it's just a game where if you're Wolves fans, you're just leaving with this bitter, sour taste in your mouth, just knowing you were right there and you had it. And this was your chance to really secure your shot in a sense at the finals to get there. Yeah. And now you're battling uphill against, one of the best historical seasons, regular season teams that we've seen in the century, actually.
Benjamin wants to know, trying to understand why the Wolves' in-your-face defense let Oklahoma City breathe when they didn't let the Wolves breathe an inch. They lost the hustle plays, didn't do basic rebound box outs, let up every time they tied it. Effort. Why? It's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question.
Some of it is they worked so hard to get themselves back into the game so much. When you trail early, when you're kind of down, and it wasn't like a blowout, but they were down, I think by 9 or 11 at one point. And usually it was somewhere in that kind of like 5 to 9 range. When you go on a mini run and get it tied up or get it close again, you've used so much energy. You've used a lot of mental energy. You've used a lot of physical energy. Like
Yes.
it is taxing to keep doing that over and over again. So I think some of it is that where you've worked so hard, the other team is inevitably going to go on a run. But he's right. They lost the hustle plays. They lost a lot of the 50-50 balls. The offensive rebounding early really favored Oklahoma City. Now it wound up
Yep.
tied 19 apiece in offensive rebounds. So both teams got plenty of second chances. Wolves turned it over 21 times. A ton of those were early on. They just didn't have the same whatever it was. They looked tentative and kind of shell-shocked a little bit early by how much different Oklahoma City was playing. Dort was all over Ant in the
Oh
first
my God,
half. That was
everywhere.
part of the reason he was not getting his. Now, when
Yep.
Dort got his fourth foul early in the third quarter, that did change some things for Ant. But some of it is just how well Oklahoma City played. Like Oklahoma City is a great team. Like they came and took it, but the Wolves definitely lacked some. I don't know if it was intensity or maybe it was purpose early enough in that game to really give them the upper hand that they were then trying to sustain rather than fighting uphill the whole way.
Exactly. It was one of those things where they kind of the Wolves would get there, they tied it up multiple times, they would get it to a single possession, and you feel good. But every time the Thunder responded, and it wasn't because they did anything great, as much as it was just a mental mistake. Like you said, it takes so much energy to climb all the way back, especially in a game like this. That these little tiny mistakes, those are the ones that really bite you in the end, and that's what cost the Wolves today. Too many times they doubled the wrong guy. They look confused defensively in this, I guess, in the scramble plays. Oklahoma City always looked very composed. The Wolves looked panicked. How many times did Caruso get that little bucket down by a little bucket, a little baseline cutter, just because Minnesota's not communicating at all? I mean, Oklahoma City looked very comfortable. And part of the reason that pass is so possible is because there's no one even around, Shea or Jalen whoever's making that pass. There's no one even contesting them. So it's a simple 2-on-1, and it's just one of those things where you look at yourself and you're going to kick yourself about what you saw tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the Wolves, like I said, I'm not sure where you go from here. It's going to be a lot of soul searching for this team.
Yeah.
But this is everything you could have hoped for in Game 4. It's everything you could have hoped for to pull this out. The mistakes, it's the tiny mistakes, the energy. I mean, we talked about 19 offensive rebounds that evened out in the end.
Yeah.
You can make an argument almost every Oklahoma City offensive rebound, especially in the second half, was much bigger than the Thunder, and they made them pay for it. How many times they had a three coming out? I think it was 2 or 3 of their threes in the fourth quarter alone came off offensive rebounds. I mean, those are backbreakers for this team.
Yeah, they absolutely were. I mean, folks want to complain about the fouls and the free throws. Wolves actually got the benefit of more foul calls. The free throws were in their favor. Like, this was not a free throw game. This was not a Shea free throw merchant game. He was making a lot of tough shots. He ended up with he wound up with a bunch of free throws attempted. He wound up with, I think, 14 free throw attempts, but a lot of those were they're fouling him late. Like, and he earned a bunch of those too. Like, this was just a game where you didn't have enough. You didn't have enough. Your best, or what you were close to your best outside of what you got from your superstars. Your best was not good enough in this game. Now, my former neighbor Tom says, have two cousins ever scored more in an NBA playoff game? That's good, because Shea had 40, Na had 23, 63 combined for two cousins. Yeah, Na was fantastic in this game. Like,
he was great.
He's definitely struggled at some points in these playoffs trying to do too much. He did a lot tonight, but he had it in him. He made some tough shots. It wasn't just threes, 5 of 8 from 3-point range. He's a +6 in his 29 minutes. So that tells you a lot. But Shea was just tremendous. I thought this was him basically at his best tonight. He almost had a triple-double with 40 points. He was outstanding.
Nah, +6 team high. That's everything. I mean, look at Nah was +6, Gobert was +4, Conley was +2. The only guys in plus, which in a game this close.
Only 19 minutes of Mike tonight, by the way.
Yeah, which I think, and I'm not a big fan of that, but I do think Mike had 19 big minutes for them. He gets hunted so much defensively. Yes, he had that great block, but he gets hunted so much defensively, and it forces, when he's out there, the Wolves really do kind of slow the pace down a little bit.
Right.
I think that was allowing OKC to get their defense set up, and then on the flip side of it, they just kept attacking Mike over and over again. So I actually understand Finch not playing Mike as much, especially going to Terrence Shannon Jr., who gave him great minutes. 9 points is big, but it's tough when 3 of your guys are the only ones in positive. And you break down this game really simple, the simple facts of it. You turn the ball over 21 times, you give 19 offensive rebounds. That's going to hurt you every single time. Regardless of what the effort, what the score, how many people score for your team, what the bench does, what the starters do, you're not going to win. You're not going to beat the Thunder in a game like that. You just aren't. That's been proven this whole season. So the Wolves have got to figure something out. And a lot of them just being lackadaisical, kind of, especially in the first half. Just where was the urgency they came out with in game 3?
It was weird.
Right?
It wasn't there. Brandon says Chet Holmgren is not welcome in my home. Yeah. I can see why. He was good tonight. He had 21. He had a bunch of blocks, a big one late. He's such an interesting player. Just his skill set. He extends the floor. He was 2 of 4 from 3-point range tonight. He had 21 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks. Like, he's a guy. He's basically their third scorer essentially, but he does it in such a unique way that those 3 guys, Williams, SGA, and Holmgren had 95 of their 128. That's just amazing.
Unbelievable. And it's, if you're Minnesota, it's a lot of Chet's, he had the deep 3, he had the deep 2 that actually was ruled a 2 when I look at 3. But all 3 of those shots was miscommunication defensively. It seemed like, both players, instead of switching, both players went with Shea. And I understand you going with Shea and double team. I get that. But you got to trap them. There was no trap. They just kind of got lost in it. Two of them came against Randall. And I think that's part of the reason why Julius Randall didn't play. That's why he struggled so much.
Yeah.
He was just Oklahoma City was very physical with him in the beginning. He did not like that. And it took him out of his game almost instantaneously, and he was never able to recover. I thought Finch did a good job. It was smart to bench him late. I would have done the same exact thing in that situation. But other than that, what an effort by the bench. Naz Reid, I thought, was phenomenal. Only had 11 points, but just made a big difference with everything he did. And he stayed out of foul trouble, which is very big. Yeah. So, you live and you die this way.
It's what Skolny says. See you in the fall, Wolves. It's over. El Grande Arsenalano says only Minnesota would have their 2 stars totally no-show and cost them the game at home. And one more here on the negative side. Nordic Nacho says that was their best punch, and it wasn't good enough. Gentlemen sweep. Woof. Now there is a game 5. This is not technically over. This has been a team that's resilient. We've talked about it. Like, it's going to be hard for them to muster it up. Oklahoma City's going to have their home crowd. They're going to want to, like, if you thought they were good tonight, if you thought they were good in game 1, if you thought they were good in game 2, like, they're going to be motivated in game 5. Like, it's going to take almost the perfect game probably to win game 5, but it's not technically over. What can they do? What do they do between now and Wednesday to find something that was lacking tonight, even though a lot of what they did tonight was positive?
They said after, I think it was a game 1 or game 2 loss, and stayed up to like 3 a.m. watching game film with one of the assistant coaches. If I'm Ant and Randall, I almost just flush this game. I'm not even sure how much game film I watch of this. You watch it obviously, but like how much you pick apart. You just flush this game because this was the game where you just failed to show up in. It was just, and once it's not even like you're missing shots. You didn't even take the shots and miss them. Right. So you just flush this. You say we have to come out and be much more aggressive, and we have to assert ourselves much, instantly. I think especially before Dante and Naz and Nikhil all check in, those first 6 minutes have to be completely Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle taking almost every single shot. You have to get them going. That's the only chance you have at winning this game, especially on the road, because you can't expect another performance from Dante or Naz or like this tonight on the road. It proved in games 1 and 2 they just couldn't do it. So it's got to fall on the stars. You make that adjustment, and if you're Chris Finch, your season's on the line. You've got nothing to lose. I get certain things have gotten you to this point, but you're playing in the Western Conference Finals against a totally different opponent. You've got to be able to, mix and match. You have to be flexible. You have to make the right moves. You can't be afraid to, make these moves. And I think that's part of what it is for him, is that this is what got us here, so we're going to stick with this, even though you've had success doing doing separate things and different issues. So I think Finch has really got to grow up a little bit, and, he's got to push the right buttons again. I thought his timeouts tonight were great, though. For the record, he took the proper timeouts. He never let Oklahoma City really get going. So those are the biggest things I think, you have to do. And rebound the ball. Grab the rebound. Don't turn it over. You do that, you're going to have a chance.
Nope. We're back. We're back now. I lost.
Got you. You're back.
All right. Anyway, all right. We'll wrap here. We'll be back at Modest Brewing for Game 5. Come join us. The season's not over. This could be the last one, though. Let's go have some fun. We'll watch this one together. We'll see how it all goes.
Yeah,
Ryan, appreciate it. Good stuff. Good times. We'll have some fun on Wednesday and see where it takes us.
Exactly. Well, they're going to celebrate, with a few drinks afterwards for another home game, or you drink our sorrows. Either way, it's going to be a good night.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Great questions. Sorry the outcome wasn't better, but we're here, win or lose. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.